Good morning, fellow Trekkies and all starships in the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta quadrants. This is Josh Pritchett with New Frontiers, a look at Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime and co-host, Chris Pabon. Chris, how's it going?
Good morning, Josh, and good afternoon, and good
Yeah.
afternoon to all people watching our show. Buenos días para todos nuestros amables oyentes y nuestro público. Guten Tag, and of course, last but most importantly, Happy Father's Day to everyone out there.
Kushva Dawi.
So,
Yeah,
Josh,
that's what it. Yeah. So, Chris, before we get started,
yeah,
we need to do a special shout out to our special guest host from last week, Mr. Michael Jan
oh,
Friedman.
yes.
Yes, as it turned out, a few hours after this show aired, Crazy Eight Publishing met its fundraising goals. So, thank you to everybody out there that saw this, supported it, stepped up. It's really worthwhile. Michael and our friends at Crazy Eight really appreciate it, and you know, thank you for joining us and helping this worthwhile project to get their new anthology out. And you know, we
So we
we hope
pushed
we'll
them
have.
over the so we
Hmm?
pushed them over the edge.
I think we did. Yeah. I mean, you know, I just know that a few hours after Michael was here, they got over the hump and they made the money. So we will, a big shout out to our friends there, Crazy Eight, and we're glad we could help if we did help. And I'm not, but it was really all their hard work, and I'm glad we were able to support it. So cheers to them. And um,
Us pushing them over
yeah.
the edge holds up to fact check.
Well, it works for me. So any rate, so we have a lot to cover this week, don't we, Chris?
We do.
Oh yes.
And like the giant Antaeus from Greek mythology, when each time he touched the earth, he got stronger. Each episode of this season just keeps on getting better and better. As a whole, I think this season just keeps getting stronger by episode.
Indeed it does. And we had a heck of a big revelation in this one we will get into right now. So
Spoilers.
let's fly. Okay, so this week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds opens with someone coming aboard the ship asking it for Starfleet's help to deal with a series of raiders. The episode is called "The Splendid Squall," and that is the name of this pirate ship that has apparently been attacking Federation colonists and outposts out on the outer edge of its territory. So Pike and the Enterprise decide to fly out and see what's going on. Then when they get there, Pike decides that they're going to take a risk and fly out beyond Federation boundaries after they have come across some colonist ships that have been attacked and raided um, by these pirates. And Chris, you want to pick up right there?
So they are spurred to do this by a character called Dr. Aspen, who, as you've noted, Joss, is a humanitarian former counselor, no longer is with Starfleet, and she knows what catnip is for Captain Pike, which is going to help people who need it. Um, as you said, he doesn't hesitate when they have to cross over into territory that is no longer the Federation, and they have to drop off beacons to be able to keep back in touch with the Federation, because this sector of space is so isolated that communication with Starfleet will take 2 days to get back and forth. And Captain Pike, being the Boy Scout that he is, and we find out from Una that literally that's in his file, that he decides to go in and not wait for permission to prevent people from going up on the oxen block. Because as Laan has noted during the episode, that outside of the Federation, slavery is still uncomfortably comfortable with other cultures. And so they're going in, and we see some conversation between Spock and Dr. Aspen, um, that makes us think that she's very level-headed and has a lot of insight, and you can kind of see that she used to be a former counselor. At one point, the Enterprise encounters what seems to be technology based on the Tholian web, that they're encased in a net, the net is shrinking, and best case scenario, if they touch the lines, the ship will go down. Worst case scenario, as Ortegas likes to note, things will go boom. And so, thanks to insight from Dr. Aspen, Spock is able to deduce that there must be one asteroid which is powering the entire net. And they isolate two powerful signatures. They don't know which one to fire on, and Pike just tells Spock, go with your gut, which is completely illogical for a Vulcan that wants to base itself on facts and metrics and logic. And he's totally sweating it out until Dr. Aspen says, Spock, just go for it. And Spike does. He picks correctly. The web goes down, and they keep on going forward. But you can clearly see that Spock has been shaken up by all of this. And Spock is already carrying some baggage into this episode because as we open, which I thought was a brilliant touch, T'Pring is the one who gives the opening monologue. And she wishes to explore Spock's human side and has cited several works on sexuality, which has unnerved Spock a little bit because he doesn't quite know. Again, we're faced with the conundrum that he's struggling with if he's Vulcan, if he's human. And there's a follow-up conversation with Dr. Aspen in his quarters where she calls him out and says, listen, I noticed that you were just having some issues up on the bridge. And identity is something that we all struggle with, which I want to talk about later on, the whole concept of identity and who we are, until they get to the point where they find the last of the three colonial vessels. And it appears from the sensor readings from afar that there's at least 200 colonists locked inside the cargo hold. And there's 30 what they presume to be pirates that are in different parts of the ship. And so Pike being Pike decides, well, I'm going to go in, and tells Lahan to assemble a security team. And it's only two people that go on the security team with Lahan. So it's And so they beam down and they find an empty cage, and they're seeing no one. And at the same time, we see that Nurse Chapel is walking through the hallway, and she hears some screams and sees some phaser fire. And suddenly the realization comes that, holy crap, just as they were beaming in, someone used that window to beam themselves onto the ship. And so they're under attack by pirates. And the pirates make their way to the bridge where there's a brief firefight. And we see Spock's strength showcased because, as we know, Vulcans are much stronger than humans. And through a combination of strength and nerve pinching, he's able to get himself and Dr. Aspen out of that jam on the bridge. But the bridge does fall, as does the ship. And meanwhile, on the cargo ship that they thought was a pirate ship, Captain Pike and his party are taken prisoner. And things are looking pretty dire, I must say. Josh, you want to take it from there?
Yes. So, Captain Pike. Wait, am I still? Sorry. Here we go. Yeah. Sorry, we had a technical glitch there, folks. Okay, so, Una manages to shut down primary command functions to the bridge so that the pirates cannot take command of the ship. Meanwhile, Pike, in order to try to find a way to free his crew, does the only thing any good starship captain would do. He decides to cook dinner for the pirates and gets them talking, and finds out that it comes to the realization that the Orion, who acts like he's in charge of everything, is not actually in charge. There is another person in charge running things, but we don't know who that is yet. Meanwhile, Spock and Asper, managed to meet up with Chapel, and they begin trying to strategize how they're going to retake the ship because the rest of the crew has been captured and taken down to the shuttlecraft. Spock deduces that the best thing they could do is head for engineering, take control of the ship's primary functions from there, and contact Starfleet, and then get the crew back and try to retake the ship that way. Okay, good plan. They get down there, and during this time, Asper has has talked to Spock, and it told him that she had been married to a Vulcan, but that the pirates had killed him because he had decided that the logical thing to do was to fight back to protect the colonists, and he died. Well, they get down to the engineering room. Spock manages to override everything, tries to get command back, but suddenly finds out he can't. And it turns out Asper is dun 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 the pirate captain, and she had specifically planned to capture the Enterprise because she needed Spock. And it turns out she needs Spock for something very specific. As we found out a couple episodes ago, T'Pring is a prison reform officer who is in charge of trying to get Vulcans who have strayed away from the path of Serac back on the path. And there is one prisoner that Asper is trying to free. He is identified only as Zartanas, which is interesting because in an earlier Star Trek novel, Zartanas was known as the Vulcan Eater of Souls, basically the equivalent of the Vulcan Devil. This is apparently a code word we will later find out about. And Spock let me back up. Asper contacts T'Pring, tells her she has the Enterprise and Spock. She will kill Spock if she does not free her prisoner. So T'Pring agrees to go to a rendezvous point. Spock then comes up with a plan, and when T'Pring makes contact again, Spock turns around and kisses Nurse Chapel, which confounds everybody, including T'Pring. Spock then manages to fight his way to regain control of the Enterprise bridge. Asper then beams off to a waiting shuttlecraft. Meanwhile, Spock goes back and rescues the rest of the Enterprise crew, who has successfully managed to start a mutiny amongst the pirates in order to get themselves freed, and everybody's back on the Enterprise. Spock then meets up with T'Pring, and she understands what he was doing, and they decide to perform a, I don't know, they have a romantic moment. Then Spock goes to talk to Nurse Chapel and apologize for kissing her, and she says she understands, and he says that she is a good friend, and she says the same thing, and so it's like, okay, it doesn't look like Nurse Chapel's going to try to put any moves on Spock because she knows he would never do anything to hurt T'Pring. But Nurse Chapel does ask, what was the deal with this Zartanas guy? And Spock says it's a code word. It is for the most dangerous prisoner that Vulcan security has. He is, in fact, he is another son of Ambassador Serix, who was born before I was. His name is, wait for it, Sybok. Ooh, okay. So I know there's not a lot of fans of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. However, I've always thought Sybok was an intriguing possible villain. And the fact that he is making a return in Strange New Worlds has me very excited. I think a lot of people have heard, Chris, you and I have talked about this, that I've hoped that Sybok would come back for a while now. Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. All the way back to Discovery, when we introduced the character of Michael, we never heard her say anything about Sybok. We never heard what was going on there with that. Now we have him back, and what do you think of this?
As I mentioned at the start of the episode, the season keeps on getting better and better because even though these are isolated stories unto themselves. But what we're witnessing is world building, very slow, very methodical. So up until now, we have like a macro threat, which is the Gorn, and threat to the Federation. And now we have a micro threat, a very serious one in Captain Angel and Cybok. And I do like that they went till the end and that they are bringing back Cybok, because I am one of those people who, yes, I do not like the Final Frontier. I kind of like to think that it never happened. But then bringing back Cybok now is sort of the equivalent of, when you burn toast and like, crap, what am I going to do now? And then you kind of brush off the burnt part and then you cut it up into cubes and voila, you have croutons. They've sort of taken something bad and they're making something good with bringing in Cybok. And it's just a sign of a good show is to have good villains. Really, it's villains who sometimes carry the show. So, in order to have strong heroic protagonists, you need strong villains. And so, we're definitely seeing Captain Angel again. Love the performance by Jesse James Keitel. We're definitely going to see Cyborg because I think we know C is going to be successful and C is going to get him out of that rehabilitation center. So I love again that even though we have separate episodes, but slowly they're contributing to a world building that I think we're going to enjoy for several seasons. And I think that Captain Angel and Cybok are going to be formidable big bats.
You heard it here first, folks. Cybok is croutons.
Cybok
okay. Yeah, no, I agree with your analogy, Chris. I think that you do need great villains to make a show like this function. And Cybok is a villain that I don't think we've explored enough. Well, yes, your shirt, Mr. Khan. The thing is, I agree with you partially on Final Frontier. It is not, on the whole, a good movie. I don't think it's completely Shatner's fault that it is not good. There were a lot of things that happened behind the scenes, various writers' strikes and special effects house strikes that contributed to problems with that movie. And yes, let's face it, the concept of, okay, we're going to jump on the Enterprise and we're going to go find God is kind of ridiculous in and of itself. However, Cybok himself is a compelling villain because he is a character from Spock's past. He is somebody that defies what we associate as the norms of Vulcan behavior. He is very ruthless. I mean, he may come in the guise of being a pacifist, but we know he is quite capable of terrible brutality. If pushed, he may say, "Oh, I don't want violence." Well, Khan initially did not want violence. He didn't want to have to kill the crew of the Enterprise, but he was willing to do it if it got him to from point A to point B, and whatever. But I think that this was a great turn of events. I agree. Yeah, the show is primarily episodic, unlike, say, Enterprise or Picard. Not Discovery or Picard, rather. That, we have these big Archie stories that start in the first episode and then are going to go all the way to the end of the season and can get pretty wonky and hard to hold together. These are episodic, but there's little things that are being dropped. This is more like the first few seasons of Babylon 5. We didn't know about the shadows all at once. It's just we kept getting hints about something that was coming, and they would allude to in the credits and everything that this is going down. And of course, we did get a big payoff with that, if you will recall. And I think there is something, there's something brewing here. But it's not going to be the main focus of everything. Anybody who's seen the trailer for next week's episode knows that's going to be going in a whole new direction, but it looks great. So, Chris, any other thoughts on the synopsis before we bring in our guest?
I mean, yeah, I just want to mention that and this is a good way to bleed into our next segment, is the whole talk and theme throughout the episode of identity, and I wanted to cite something that really struck me from the end of the episode that Captain Angel says, which is, I urge you to consider that you do not need to be either Vulcan or human. That is, and always has been, a false choice. The question isn't what you are, but who you are. And I want to talk about that more in the good and the bad of the Gorn.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And on that note, we are ready to bring in our guest. He's been here before. He is one of our number one fans who we always enjoy his insights when he sends them in. Once again, welcome, Mr. Michael P. Michael.
Morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. Good afternoon,
Great.
good sir. How are you today?
I'm okay. And I love Chris's comment. Personally, I think that's what this whole episode is about. It's just this, this whole illusion of binary choices. It's like the world isn't built that way. We want it to be that way, but it's not that way. And I think that Dr. Aspen / Angel is one of the most brilliantly and acted characters we've seen so far today. Angel played all of them perfectly, just absolutely perfectly, and it's just incredible. I just think it's incredible.
Yes. To quote Danny DeVito in Batman Returns, she played them all like a harp from hell. So, on that note, good sirs, let us get into our weekly segment of the good, the bad, and the Gorn. Okay, so what do we think was good about this episode? I'm going to start. I'm going to follow up on what Chris said about Pring giving the opening monologue with her log entry and then catching Spock off guard with admitting that she is now reading human erotica in order to spice things up in their relationship and also so that she can understand his human side. But Spock is not sure he, wants to embrace his human side because he was raised Vulcan. Michael, you want to follow up, or you want to throw in what you like?
Okay, and I go back to what Chris said earlier. The best part, I still think, is Aspen / Angel. The actor brilliantly portrayed this person, and you felt as Dr. Aspen, the character truly saw and brilliantly manipulated all the characters, and I thought it was great that it showed the hypocrisy and to a certain extent of all the people there because there was that arrogance. Dr. Aspen Angel won because they were so arrogant. They were so sure they could win, and they didn't. And Angel just brilliantly played them. However, Angel made a mistake with T'Pring, but everyone else, Angel was exactly right about them.
Yes. Well, sorry, Chris. I'll come back to you in just a second, but I just wanted to throw in one thing: is that Asper / Angel clearly does have a background in psychiatry or psychology. She was every bit as manipulative as Hannibal Lecter was in Silence of the Lambs, that she was able to assess her targets and figure out what she could perceive to be weaknesses and played on them in the guise of being their friend and, someone who's trying to help them. Even though she was clearly in this for herself. And maybe to a certain extent, she sort of empathized with Spock because she's clearly in love with Sybok and would go to such dangerous lengths to free him, that she understood Vulcan, how Vulcans think, or at least how Sybok thinks Vulcans think, with his thoughts. Chris, what are your thoughts? Chris?
I am with Michael on this, that she played to the role that people expected of her. Wise, soft-spoken as a counselor. That was the expectation. That is the identity that people associated with a counselor. So she played to that until it came time to reveal that she had played them all. And her own words, when she talks about them buying her story, and they're not double checking any of it, that's on you. And it's true, because in their own hubris and arrogance, they thought, well, of course we can go and save these people. There are people that need to be saved. This is our job. And so he played them. I'm not exact, but he played them because this is, as he mentions to Spock when they're talking in the room about how we tend to put ourselves in boxes, that, this is the box that they have placed her in, like the wise counselor, empathetic. And so she used that to her own advantage. And the truth is that, we shouldn't be putting people in boxes, because we are much more than boxes. I mean, it is not what we are, it is who we are. So I thought that was brilliantly played throughout the entire length of the episode. And I'm going to disagree with you slightly, Joss, in the whole. I don't think she has like any training as a psychologist. I think these were all street smarts that, in her background as she's grown up, she's learned how to read people like the best poker players. There's not really training. It's on the job training when you learn how to do this. And as far as her wanting to break out Cybok, I have to question a little bit, is it love or is it the devotion of a follower? Because as we know, and probably will get to know more, that Cybok, the reason why Spock is warned not to have any interaction with him and he's so dangerous is that, he's quite charismatic and he can make people change their points of view. And I will even go as far as saying, and hopefully we see more of this as the seasons go by, because I hope we see a lot of Cybok and Captain Angel, that if you fast forward to mock time, where T'Pring basically orders Spock to fight Kirk, this seems to be a very emotional decision. Just like we saw, and you mentioned Hannibal Lecter, how in the interaction with Hannibal Lecter and Clarice was is somewhat influenced by Hannibal Lecter. Maybe we'll see in future seasons and episodes that Cybok begins to influence T'Pring.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about that ever since we've had this and we found out what her position was. I've had to wonder, did Cybok have something to do with the ending Spock and T'Pring's romantic relationship? Because she does seem to be a lot different from the T'Pring we met in the episode The Amok Time. That she is definitely a far more open-minded person, that she has not just been sort of off on her own thing. It's like, yes, I'm in this, relationship, and okay, at a certain point, Spock and I are supposed to come together and formally wed and, do that sort of stuff. This is definitely a lot more complex than I think we saw in the original episode. And hence that's why, T'Pring is a recurring character now at this point. And, it definitely seems to really genuinely love Spock. And you got to wonder, is Cybok going to twist that? Are we going to find out in at some point, some flash forward episode, that T'Pring, threw Spock over because of Cybok? And she would actually have to go through a massive personality realignment, because she in essence was condemning Kirk to death, because she'd have to know there's no way Kirk could have beaten Spock in a one-on-one fight like that. And does that mean that Cybok is going to brainwash her in some way, and that maybe at some point in a future forward episode, Spock realizes this and saves T'Pring, or does she end up in the Vulcan penal colony? Obviously this is not something we know about, but I mean, it's something we should definitely kind of keep our eyes open for going forward. I'm throwing out stuff here, but there's a whole dimension here.
Going back to the thing of identity, and I want to hear Michael's opinion on this as well. I thought it was also brilliantly played when you have Spock telling both women, "You know me well," because again, that's the reference to like, okay, this is my identity, like the identity that Nurse Chapel assigns to him, even though I think he's hoping that this is not the case. So like, yeah, you're the guy who has a fiance, is not going to be seeking an outside relationship. And then you have T'Pring saying, well, your identity is you're a Vulcan. Of course, you cannot have feelings for Nurse Chapel. And again, it's this whole issue of people being, their identity being put in boxes. And as Angel says, there's more to life than logic. Logically, you might think these are the ways that things must be, but like we're all unique individuals. So again, it's all about like, the identities that we assign people. But like, Michael, what did you think of that?
Well, it's like it's like Angel Aspen told Spock, it's not what other people think. It's who you are. And I honestly, don't you think this episode is way on the meta side too?
Oh yes.
Did anyone else think that besides me that this episode is very meta?
In what way do you mean, Michael?
Well, and one of the things I was reading about it was, the fact that the character playing Dr. Aspen is Jesse James Keitel, right? I think Keitel, is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
A transgender.
And, I'm sorry.
A transgender woman, yeah.
Yeah. So and I think Jesse James is binary.
I thought non-binary, but anyway, I get your point where you're going to.
Well, yeah, and it's men in that sense that we have a person who's not defined. That they define themselves as as a person doing these types of different roles, but this person is a person defining themselves. And so that's why I felt it was kind of meta, and this whole thing with Spock, and this so-called binary choices and stuff, and then this everything about this, it just seemed to be the idea of these choices, and because we lock ourselves into these roles, we can be easily manipulated, and so it just seems very meta. I mean, this whole episode I think it's brilliantly written, and it was written by Bo DeMaio and Sarah Tarkoff.
Yeah,
I just think it's brilliantly written, because as you listen to the dialogue, it's this whole thing about these, the choices: good, evil, prisoner, not prisoner, in love, not in love. I mean, all these different choices. Is Captain a Boy Scout? Oh, I'm not a Boy Scout. I'm going to prove I'm not a Boy Scout by doing something which I think was very stupid.
Yes.
But it's just I just got this feeling it was very meta. That's just my thought.
No, I think that's I did not know that about the actress, the performer playing Angel Asper, and I thought that's really interesting, that they could get Spock to think this way, to look at himself, and I think that's one of the things we're sort of kind of dealing with here in the real world, is that there are a lot of people who don't want to be defined in boxes, that this is not how I see myself. I want you to see me. I want you to see the real me. Whether that is, because of how you feel your gender should be, or your personal identity. I think people have always had a hard time having their identity defined, or have not wanted their identity defined in a certain way that society says, okay, it's going to, we're putting you in this box. This is how you were born. This is what you're going to be. Deal with it,
Josh, you just said something absolutely perfect. Okay, because I just saw an old episode of Cold Case, and there was a character there who was going through a transition, and what she said is she kept telling people, "I want you to see me," because she was born a male, and it was an old cold case, and she I'll give it away. It's an old show, but she wound up committing suicide. But her whole point is what she always told people when they took pictures of her: I want you to see me. And I think that's what this whole this episode, and as you guys are talking about Cybok, it goes into Cybok. I want you to see me, and I don't want to be this thing or that thing. I want to be me, and like I still think this is a brilliantly written episode. The subtext was incredible throughout the excuse me the entire episode. Excuse me. It just the subtext. I watched it twice. Okay, I watched it twice. It got better the second time I watched it. I can honestly say that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to the aspect of world building. Another part of the episode I liked is that they finally addressed the Nurse Chapel Spock thing that we kind of saw a hint of it in a previous episode, I think like 2 episodes ago. And let's face it, like there was emotion behind that kiss. Like he enjoyed and wanted to give her that kiss, and she was clearly rocked by that kiss. So this again, in terms of world building, there's going to be much more than this because clearly they're both lying to one another when they're pretending not to have feelings for one another. And I'm glad that we addressed it in this way because again, it's like planting a seed for more things to come in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Spock it feels very complicated because he very much loves T'Pring, but clearly he sees something in Chapel, something more in Christine.
His opposites attract.
Yes. So, I really don't have too many complaints about this episode. I mean, we can nitpick about whether or not it was wise of Pike to go into unknown territory, but that's kind of his job anyway, to boldly go where no one has gone before. So I don't think that's a big deal.
Can I throw in something, Josh? I've got something bad that just it irked the hell out of me.
Okay, buddy, go ahead.
You start, Michael, because like you start and I'll finish because I got some bad too.
Oh, okay. All right. Their sensors. How bad are their sensors? I mean, you've got a vessel moving behind them, right? Her, it turns out to be Angel's vessel, that she beamed to, and it's following them, and it's like, okay, their sensors didn't pick it up, and there was, as far as I can tell, there was no cloaking device. Did anyone notice a cloaking device for it?
I thought that vessel was just hidden on an asteroid, though.
It was until it started following them. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. It followed them as they went in there, and they found they found this, the Serene Squall, right? That they thought was really, the colonist vessel, but it was really the Serene Squall. But it followed them in there, and because it had to stay close to them so that she could beam out, right? So
yeah,
I'm wondering what good are their sensors? Sorry, I'm sorry about that.
Well, that is kind of a thing with a lot of episodes throughout Star Trek's history. That the enemy has come up with some new way to outwit our sensors, Captain. But I think that said, I think you've got a good point. How bad did this have to be? But I think that goes in the heading of drama. Chris, what did you have?
Likewise, along the same lines is so La'an takes 2 members of the security team with her down to the Squall. And was that it? Where is the rest of the security teams? Were they at some type of security personnel conference that everyone was over there and so they left a skeleton crew? I mean, how many crew members are in the ship? It just seemed like they took over the ship way too easily. And while I think it is kind of cool that there are hidden weapons on the bridge, but at the same time, there's no override where you can tell the computer to say seal the doors to the bridge. You can seal the doors to engineering. Why can't you seal the doors to the bridge? So in that respect, I thought that it was too easy for the pirates to take over. Where was security personnel? Why can't they lock the doors to the bridge? You can do it again for engineering. So I thought the security issue was a problem. I also thought that we know that the real Dr. Aspen was dropped off on some planet, inhabited planet, but there's no mention of like, okay, we're gonna go get her. Is he still like being rescued? I mean, like, oh no,
Yeah.
come up to me. I mean, at least I meant to like on Starfleet. I mean, like, what's going on here? And also, like, did no one but again, this goes back into the whole like how he played them, but did no one bother to check a picture or see what the real Dr. Aspen looks like? I mean, yes, maybe Angel got her features like physically altered, but like, is no one going to look and see? Okay, does this picture match? I mean, we have photo recognition now these days. Surely they have it there. So security in general was an issue for me in this episode, and I want to talk a little bit more about security in the Gorn part of our talk. And finally, and perhaps like most dreadfully, Pike's hair got messed up in this episode.
Well, all right. Can I throw something?
Yeah.
Because Chris, I'm sorry, Chris, you made me laugh. That is so perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. But the other that when you said that if you have some sort of security breach, you would think that the doors to the bridge would seal automatically, and that is that one of the executive officers has to do an override to get to open it back up. And so that should happen automatically. I just there are things, and to a certain extent, I think, on something called pitch meetings, they have this line, because the movie has to happen. Okay. That's what I think, to a certain extent, that's what happened here. But Josh, you were going to say.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that to any friends or fans who've been saying for years how bad a security chief Worf was, stop it, okay? We clearly, this has been a recurring problem throughout the history of Starfleet. So, I don't think anybody, I think you have to have a certain level of drama. So you have to have a whole thing where, okay, the bad guys can just get into where they're not supposed to be. But it would be helpful, like in an episode, like they do on an episode 24, where the bad guys go through this elaborate plan to override this security lockout thing so they can get in to plant a bomb or whatever. That would be helpful. But they just don't always do that on Star Trek. So, but I don't know. What else were you going to go with, Chris?
I understand that there's a limited amount of screen time for all the actors, but again, there's no Hemmer in this episode.
Yeah, that was, I know. And especially like, oh, we're in his room. Where's Hemmer? Okay, we needed some Hemmer. We are going to get some Hemmer next week, but we need Hemmer every week, So, we want more Hemmer time.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
Good one, Josh. Good one.
Terrible.
Point for Josh. Point for Josh. But the thing with Hemmer, I think it has to. I might be wrong with it, and Josh, I think you know more than I do about this. But I think he has. I think it's the way they've got his contract written, and the way he's a featured player as opposed to a regular one. So I think that may have something to do with it. I don't know this, but I mean, I just noticed the way that they talk about, when you look at his credit, it's featured and stuff.
I thought it was featured in the beginning of the episode, when they've got the opening sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought I've seen his name on there. So I think honestly maybe it's just some episodes they just forget to write Hemmer in, or maybe he has something else that has to go on a particular couple of days when they're filming a particular episode, and they decide, okay, we don't really need him in this episode, or it could be like a reverse Michael Doran thing where it's like, okay, Michael didn't, one of the reasons that Michael didn't want to come back and do Picard just yet, I mean, he's obviously going to do it now, but was that he didn't want to just come in and do, put up with putting that makeup on for 2 or 3 hours just to have like one line that, okay, he wants to be in a scene like what we saw where he and Uhura were trapped in the cargo bay a few episodes ago. and actually get to do a lot more acting. He didn't want to just stand around wearing the makeup. So that could be part of it. Either way, I think, I don't know, there may be just something more going on there that, I mean, maybe we'll find out about later on behind the scenes or something, or maybe they just forgot to write him in to the episode, which seems kind of ridiculous that you would kind of want Hemmer to be there, especially in the scene when, maybe like hiding away in the engineering room and helping Spock retake control of the ship. But, I don't know.
Can I,
Yeah.
In deference to them, I've seen next week's episode. I think you'll be satisfied with next week's episode then, in that respect. Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I think we will.
Yeah,
it does look like Hemmer's going to be very important to the plot of the episode.
Yes.
So
yes, I think we can say that without doing spoilers. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. But I mean, of course, that trailer is up on YouTube, so I invite everybody to go check that out. Okay, so we are now approaching our theories and wrap up. So, sorry.
For the Gorn part of the episode.
Go ahead.
So everyone, brace yourselves, strap yourselves into your seat, because for this Gorn part, I'm going to call for the immediate demotion of La Noonien Singh as Chief of Security due to dereliction of duty and gross incompetence. On her watch, let's just review this. We have had the entire crew almost captured and eaten by the Gorn. We have had people utilizing the transporter system like they own it. And now we have the entire crew captured by pirates. I'm going to say that at best, C is incompetent, and at worst, C is a Gorn Manchurian candidate. And at one point in the future, Michael Burnham is going to and crew are going to wake up, and because they're displaced from time, they're going to discover that the Federation no longer exists, and it's the Gorn Empire everywhere. And it will be La'an's doing in the past.
Oh my. Okay. Okay. Well, I got nothing about that one. Michael?
Gorn. No. On Gorn, I think you're right. But again, the movie has to happen, kind of thing. So because it just. But there are things that should have happened, that should be part of security that you would think normally. But we have sometimes you have to give them stuff because the movie has to happen. Oh, and I see we've got theories coming up. So let me throw out a theory. The next episode, I think everybody will absolutely enjoy it. I think Cybok. I don't think we're going to see Cybok for a while, but we can't see Cybok in season 2. I don't think, because Kirk. We know we're going to see Kirk in season 2, and Kirk didn't know about Cybok in the
movie,
in the general theory of the Star Trek universe. Now we may have a major change in the Star Trek universe, and I think that'd be great, and have Cybok in it, and then that would give us. It would be great if Cybok somehow can help Pike avert his fate. Now that would be great. Okay, that's my theory.
Yeah, Chris.
I think that the closest, Joss, and I know this is going to hurt you, to seeing Klingons is going to be the mention of Klingons in this episode. I don't think we're going to see any for the rest, at least, of this season. I think that Star Trek has relied too heavily on Klingons, and rightfully so. They're giving them a rest. And I think that the more that they give them a rest, the fresher it will be when they return. So I think we're not going to see any Klingons. I think that, as I said last week with Michael on the show, that we're going to end on a cliffhanger this season. The more and more I think of it, it's going to be a cliffhanger. I'm not sure what. It might be involving the Gorn again. I would like to see them come back to I am Melanie Scrofano's character that we saw at the first episode. I'd like to see somehow them come back to her. But I also think that we will see, now that the door has been opened with T'Pring giving the opening monologue, that we will see non-crew members giving the monologue. I mean, maybe it'll be a monologue by Robert April. But I like where this is going, that we're going to see more non-crew member monologues. And I don't think we've seen the last yet of the love triangle. I'm officially calling it the love triangle between T'Pring, Spock, and Nurse Chapel.
Yeah, and that could be an interesting idea for some of the stuff that T'Pring has been reading. So no, I'm kidding. Sorry, bad joke. Let's not go there, folks. Well, I mean, okay, why not? T'Pring did say she wanted to spice things up a little bit here. I'm just saying. Okay. I don't really have any predictions except that I think we're 2 episodes out from the season finale. I think they will all be excellent. And we're about to come up onto the end of this week's episode. Michael, you want to tell us where people can find you and anything you'd like to share with us this week?
Okay, I can be found on Twitter at Mickle P, and I can be found on Facebook, and of course at Friends of Comic Con. Our forum site there, and I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys at Comic Con. My God, it's about a month away now, right?
Yeah.
So I expect to see all you guys there, and we can just hopefully we can have some adult beverages and discuss all these different shows that we like.
Yeah. Chris?
Thank you, Joss, and Michael, thank you again for joining us. I know it's you're a few hours behind us, and as someone who likes to sleep in on a Sunday, I know that Sundays can be extra tough, so thank you. My name is Chris Pabon. I am the co-host of the show. You can find me on Instagram at Ready Cosplay. If you are at AwesomeCon or any con in the DC area, it's quite possible I've captured your cosplay, so please take a look.
Okay. And I remain Josh Pritchett. You can find me at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook, at my my Twitter handle. My book, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still on sale on Amazon and Kindle. And yesterday, it was, if anybody caught any of the footage I tried to post, I was quite successful at yesterday's Bigfoot conference in Stanton, and I sold a lot of books. So a lot of people were very happy. So if you're interested, give it a shot. So, okay. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up, and everybody have a happy Father's Day. Have a great, safe week. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share Movers and Shakers Unlimited on YouTube or wherever you watch videos. Until then, live long and prosper, and kapla.
Peace and long life.